coronavirus is changing the world we live in. The Pine News is conducting a series of interviews with professionals in the international education industry to see how their organisations are being affected. In this episode, we spoke with professionals in the K-12 sector to see how schools have been coping and how they plan to reopen. Bonnie McKee is Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Public Schools International. Michael Shaver is Director of International at the Association of Boarding Schools, an organisation that serves boarding schools around the world. Caroline Nixon is the General Secretary of the British Association of Independent Schools with International Students. Simon Canby is Group Education Director of Cognita, a global private schools group. Suzanne Rouse is Director of the British Boarding Schools Network. And Diane Glass is Commercial Director of ISC Research, an organisation that gathers data and intelligence on the world's international schools market. They spoke about the impact that the pandemic has had on the K-12 sector.
Initially, of course, the COVID-19 situation affected delivery of learning. So about mid-March in class, learning was suspended, and it took about 2 to 3 weeks for members to adapt and shift to provide learning in an online or virtual format. Certainly at that same time, international students and their families were faced with the very difficult decision of deciding what was best for them. Was it best for the student to remain in Canada, continue their learning here while living with their Canadian host family, or was it best for the student to return home? Of course, members are fielding many questions from agents and students that are trying to look ahead to the future. Of course, in times of uncertainty, this is challenging, but many are asking for very flexible payment deadlines, very flexible refund policies. Of course, there's still significant interest in students wanting to study in Canada, hopefully from as early as September, but they want some reassurance that should that not be possible for whatever reason, that there will be some flexibility and understanding, and that there won't be any significant loss as a result of that decision.
I think that we had a certain set of challenges at the beginning, such as moving online education, getting students home. And I think we've kind of passed those immediate challenges. And now we're at the point where we're looking at 6 to 12 months into the future. And I think really the big question there is, what will the next academic year look like? And right now we just don't know.
So most independent schools are doing a fantastic job of online teaching. And the online teaching is for both UK and international students, but they can't charge full fees for that online tuition. And what that means is that they are suffering badly because they're still paying their teachers, but they're not able to get their fee income in. That will also carry on into September, because even if schools are open by then and can take back their UK children, they won't necessarily get their international borders back because of the problems at the moment with visas not being visa offices around the world not being open. And what that means is that admissions offices can't offer places and visas can't be issued to international students.
When we closed our schools and moved to online learning, we actually we were bothered about the academics, but we actually put more attention in the very earliest days on well-being, because we knew that was really where we should be focusing our attention. What we've put in place in our schools is we've made sure that we've got a range of well-being check-ins in place throughout the week, and that they go from anything for individual for some students who have got maybe particular anxiety or particular issues they're dealing with, so they may be having drop-ins with counsellors or particular staff that normally meet with in school, so from individual level. Then in most of our schools we've got group check-ins. where small groups of students come together online with a teacher or a member of staff, not normally a teacher or a form teacher, somebody like that. And the purpose of those check-ins is nothing more than just saying, how's it going for you? What's going on for you at home? What are you finding okay whilst you're learning online? Where are you struggling? What can we help you with? Do you need any more resources? So they are really important.
There are different reactions, understandably, in different markets. In Mexico, agents are saying there's a real concern about financial viability and families not having the money to send their children to the UK come September, even if their desire was still to do that. There's a strong message coming from Asian markets that the way our government has handled COVID-19 and the fact that they feel that we've been slower to respond than other countries, the fact that we have the highest number of deaths now in Europe and second across the world, I understand. And they feel very uncertain about sending their children over to UK schools. And I think that it's going to be something we're going to have to work very hard at in the coming months to reassure families. And so what the agents are looking for the schools to do right now is to reassure them about what measures they're taking or will be taking if we're able to start back in September. There may be delays, there may also be visa delays. And so there's an awareness that children may not be starting back on the exact date.
Many school leaders are now preparing very complex protocols in order to reopen the schools. Schools are open now again in China and in some other Asian countries and some countries in Europe. So there are all sorts of procedures that are going to need to be put in place to control healthy campus access. That might be, temperature checks of all people, the use of health checks apps, and certainly strict sanitization regimes. Systems will need to be required to limit large gatherings, such as perhaps staggered lunchtimes or lunchtimes in the classroom, and broadcasting assemblies, into the classrooms. There'll need to be adaptations for student transportation, and of course, strict procedures for managing suspected virus cases should they occur.
What I think we are planning for is that we have got contingency plans in place. So for example, it's likely that we won't have all students going back onto a campus at the same time, so that we will have to have social distancing measures. It may be that we only have certain year groups or certain grade levels in school to start with. We're going to need to think quite carefully about social distancing, which in some of our schools is quite easy because of the size of the campus, and in other schools it'll be more challenging.
I think that boarding schools are very diverse, supportive environments, and these challenging times have really highlighted the value of community and how strong community is at a boarding school. And has also provided boarding schools an opportunity to show how they can innovate and change with the time.
Although we've had to cancel our annual conference this year, certainly the new subcommittees and working groups that have evolved out of the COVID situation has resulted in new ways for our association to stay engaged with members, for them to share best practices now more than ever. Members are reporting that agents in many cases aren't quite as busy as they typically are, and that's provided them with opportunities to do training with their staff. In fact, I've heard from a couple of agents, they've reached out asking for information about our Canada course because they finally found some extra time that would enable them to take the course and take the exam. So those are all positive outcomes, certainly, of a very tough situation. Undoubtedly, it's our passion for this work and creativity and perseverance that will get us all through these very challenging times.